Well, hello, Bob Dendry here, and welcome back to Transport Fever 2, where we are building the Reno, Thousand Oaks and Roseville Railway. So as you can see, we've got some buses and trams and stuff going on in this intro bit, and that probably tells you what we're really going to be trying to focus on today. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Just before we start, I want to let you know that this video is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in finding out a bit more about that, you can find a link in the description. So this junction here is really going to be where the episode starts off, and it is very messy. There's a lot of, bi-directional running happening here, a lot of conflicting movements, and it just doesn't work particularly well. So we're going to hopefully get this junction here, we're going to call it Fontana Junction, as we've been calling it the whole time. We're hopefully going to clean that up a little bit, and that will stop a lot of these disrupted movements, things like that you can see right now. For example, our Hollywood Express is just sort of sitting here. It's been sitting here for a while multiple movements happen. It probably helps to try and define what our primary movements are here. And we've got really two primary movements. So we have our movement towards Santa Clara. That's already really taken care of. That's double tracked. That's fine. So we've sort of handled that one already. And our secondary, or our second primary movement, I should say, is actually going to Fontana. Which doesn't really work very well. As you can see, we've got a very sort of sharp curve here, which is going to be slowing down the train. And add on to that we've got, this single piece of track here, which is really going to hold up a lot of different trains. But we also need to plan for a couple of other movements. That is a straight through movement that's going off towards Lancaster, towards Fontana Freight Station as well, we need to cater for. And we've also got this fairly new movement we've placed in that is from our Santa Clara, or from the direction of Santa Clara towards Fontana, and also towards Lancaster as well. So pretty much we need to allow pretty much everyone to go wherever they want, and hopefully not completely impact the flow of traffic. Of course, there's always going to be a little bit of conflict, but we need to try and minimize it. Okay, so bearing in mind that a very important and really a primary movement at this junction is towards Fontana. What I would like to do is actually break off a track a lot sooner than we currently have it set up and head off towards Fontana now. So we will plan this out with a high-speed track, and I just want to see if we can get a fairly broad sort of curve, which we can. This is apparently a collision there. I don't know where the collision actually is. It's actually probably with that signal, so never mind. I do know where it is. That's going to allow reasonably fast movement. Not the fastest, but certainly a lot better than you're going to be getting on that if we pop over to our track speed overlay. 72, 68. That is just not on pretty much at this point in time. So what I might do is I might pop the game on pause, and we'll need to do a little bit of demolition. But it should be a fairly quick and easy fix regardless. So I want to get rid of this connection here. Of course, that's going to cause some complaints because it's going to break some lines and such. And probably to about here is where I want to take it back to, because that is where we're fairly straight in from Fontana Passenger Station. If we then pull from there and just try and bend a line around, we're getting down to about 118, so we could potentially do a little bit better. And how we could actually do that, I wonder, I don't know if this will work or not. This actually might not be the best way to do it, but if we start breaking off a bit sooner, like as soon as we can, I wonder if that is going to be better for us. We also don't want catenary either, so I'll get rid of that. So if we start breaking off here, construction is not possible, we're probably too close to the junction there. So if we start here instead, is that going to give us a better speed? And a little bit better. So we get down to a minimum of 121. So yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. That's pretty good. So we will allow that one to light down there. And now we need to have our second bit of track breaking off as well. And we're attaching there. We're probably going to have a construction not possible here because we do have a collision with this sort of section of rail there. So what we're going to do, we'll move back our signals, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, who knows. But we will move back those signals to probably about here or so. And then we're going to delete this set here. And that hopefully should remedy that issue. And we're still getting a construction not possible. Probably the reason for that now, thinking about it, is that this line departs quite sharply down, which may not be our best option. So I might actually see if we can start from the other side. So if I start from this one, and can I try and get a parallel line in there? That's going to be easier, I think. And that should hopefully fix the issue. If we connect it up, it'll connect up to the existing track and should have a fairly consistent junction there. Perfect. Okay, so that problem is done. We're then going to just do a fairly easy connection here. I'm also going to eliminate this single section of track here as well, which doesn't make much sense. It is a bottleneck. So there we go. We'll signalize that in a sec. And then I want to connect our freight track up here as well. And we're going to allow a crossover movement here. Obviously, this is going to conflict, but it's going to be a bit easier than the previous movement where there was just this single stretch of track through there with like nothing else going on. So that should hopefully fix us up. Okay, so that's our first major connection. That is sort of redefining what the primary movement is there. Now we've got two other probably tricky connections we need to make. Actually, probably one really major tricky connection, and that is the connection from Santa Clara over to Fontana. This is going to become a fairly important connection because we are now moving sort of across what was previously a bit of a tree where everything went towards Roseville. We're now allowing sort of cross movements, which is why we need to plan for this connection. And that current connection there, which is just a single track, it's not really working. It doesn't sort of suit what our needs are. I will have to run this for a sec. This is going to, some of my lines are a little bit broken, but we need to clear this train off the track. So I've just switched it around so it'll run back to Santa Clara. And hopefully that will be out of the way fairly soon. Okay, it has now cleared the bit of track, so we'll pop on pause again. All right, so basically our movement from Santa Clara needs to do two things. It needs to run straight across to Fontana and also needs to allow us to loop in towards Lancaster as well. So it needs to do pretty much everything. First thing we'll do is we're just going to straight up get rid of our existing connection here. It is unneeded and it doesn't work with what we want it to do. So that's fine. And how are we going to do this? So there's two ways I can think of making the connection to Fontana from Santa Clara. We can run a at-grade connection, which will cross our line towards Lancaster. Is that going to work? I don't like it. I don't think it makes any sense. And it's really not removing the conflict point either. So I'm going to see if we can raise up our line enough to make a connection across or over the top of our Lancaster line. So let's see if we can do that. If there's an easier way to do this, please feel free to let me know. I would love if you could start, and I'm thinking of how City Skylines works, how you can basically start by raising up a track and sort of select a height here and just run it straight across, which I don't think you can do in Transport Fever 2, but I'm not an expert at this game by any means. So what I'm going to do then, we're going to start by sort of heading off in this direction. We're going to start trying to push up as far as we can go. That is not high enough, I don't believe, but we'll see what happens. No, it's not. So we might need to start back a little bit further as well. And to be honest, that makes sense anyway. We want to make this connection fairly straight rather than breaking off about here where our old connection was and having to, do quite a sharp turn. So if we start more, probably just after this road crossing, we might have a better chance of making it work. I'm going to get rid of this extra signal here, and I'm just going to see if we make this connection about here or so. And if we start heading up, not dramatically, but sort of start heading up as we go towards where that crossing point will be. And how are we doing there for our speed limits? We're going a little bit slower, but 120, 130 is not too bad. The traffic that will be crossing this is either not going to be high speed, or it's actually not really going to, like, it's going to be traffic that has recently stopped anyway. See if we can get this up a little bit further. No, we're so, I feel like we're so, oh yes, okay. I was going to say, I feel like we're so close to bridging. Turns out, yes, we were, because we had bridged. And we can do this one of two ways, and I think I'm going to take the way that I think is probably smarter. So what I'm going to do here, are we still heading up? It looks like we are. So we might see, can we flatten that? Not go down, but just stay flat. I think that should be okay. And then can we cross over here? Yes, we can. All right. And then what we're going to do is we are going to start heading straight down and try and connect up over here. One thing that we're going to do is get rid of this connection here. You know, silly me being a bit naughty doing this, but it's not required and it's making things complicated. So we're going to fix it. I'm going to try and bend this a little bit more as well. All right, and how far is it going to take us to get down there? Not too bad, actually. Not too bad at all. All right, so we've basically built ourselves a bit of a flying junction here. And we will make the connection here. And we'll do a similar thing going back the other way. Perfect. Perfect-ish. It could be better, but I think it's fine in the long run. And we'll just hook in here at the same place as the other direction. The other one is getting over here. And I think this one is actually going to be fairly easy. Our height from about here is not that much different to what we've got over here. And we need to do some slight rejigging of this line anyway. We're going to switch it across to run as a double track. And we're going to do that all the way through to sort of the end of this triangle where the triangle finishes over here. In fact, I will do it all the way to our first crossing loop. As I hurry the train along by deleting the track from under it. And hopefully it survives. Oh, okay. We've got a very, very compact train there. Fair enough. So I'm going to see if we can run just a straight track that goes all the way with pretty much no deviation whatsoever. Will it work? I don't know. But I am aspirational about the whole thing, and it seems to have worked okay. Question is, can we sneak a line in here? The answer is, while we can, it doesn't look the best. So what we might actually do is take this back a little bit and have it run more central through the underside there. So to about there or so. And we should be able to get that one in as well. And yeah, perfect. Looks good. So we can make that connection. And then hopefully we can just do this direct connection here as well. And the problem with that is we're actually connecting to the wrong endpoint. So my bad about that, and that's probably going to cause a bit of a kink here, isn't it? It is, but it's still 300 k's an hour, so it's okay. Alrighty, so we need to connect up from Santa Clara through towards Lancaster. Is that going to be okay? I think it should be okay if we go from about here or so. We're saying too much slope, but we actually don't need to go all that far to get rid of that issue. So, okay. It's going to be, this is a slower connection for sure. And we're just going to have to deal with that one, I think. This is not going to be a primary passenger movement, at least not at this point, so I'm happy with it being a bit slower. And now we just need to finish linking up the triangle, and we're all good. That should fix everything. What are we still complaining about though? Train 21's unhappy. What if we turn it around? If we turn it around, it's fine. Okay, so that's everything finished. There's a bit of signaling to do, but we can start running again pretty much and just signal as we go. Alright, there we go. So it's a bit more of an expansive junction. There's probably some further improvements we could make to it along the line, but overall this is going to be a lot more efficient for how the network runs. Now, back to where we were at the start of the episode, looking at a streetcar over here running in Thousand Oaks. This is a very old unit. It is, let's have a look, 64 years old. That is ridiculous. And we can do better. So the second part of this episode I really want to work on is pretty much all of our towns that we're servicing with passenger services. And what we want to do is we want to really improve the public transport within those towns. We are really going big. You know, we spent $60 million on a PAPB with a hell of a lot of carriages, and we need to be able to take advantage of that by, getting as many passengers within the towns circulating into our stations as possible. So we're going to start over here at Thousand Oaks, and you'll notice we've now got quite a few buildings on the other side of our rail track. So we need to service them, we need to get them over to our sort of CBD area here, and also to our station. So I'm going to make some targeted road connections throughout this as well. And I'm thinking across here is probably going to be a nice connection. And that's going to allow us to loop probably we'll do a bus for this service. And then we'll service these buildings over here and we'll bring everyone back to our station here. And to really simplify things here, we're going to be running our buses in this section where we've got trams. They're going to run on the sort of the opposite side of the tracks to our trams. So we can, I guess, more easily tell them apart. I might change that in the future, but that's what I'm going for right now, pretty much. And if we pop over here to our Thousand Oaks Road Depot, I'm going to get probably 3 buses purchased to start with. That's a bit of an investment. Buses are starting to get quite expensive. Obviously, they're higher capacity, they're faster, so it makes, I guess, sense for us to have them set up like that. One thing I've done is forgotten to have a bus station over here. So let's get a new line set up here. So we are going to run it from Madison Street, from our station. It's going to run out over to here, through to our sort of new section of town. And there we go. Perfect. We're going to call this the Thousand Oaks bus 1. Yeah. Cool, and as you can see, we've already got a bit of demand here. Or, no, never mind, we don't, but it's okay. It's okay. We've also got some residential buildings over here as well, and I wonder, and they're not completely covered either. Actually, I've got a better idea. I'm going to reroute, I think, our bus from where I thought I was going to run it. Alright, so instead of running over to here and doing a bit of a loop, we're actually going to have it come through this area instead. So over here we've got coverage of all of these buildings. And so let's, we're going to get rid of the 7th Street. We're not going to use that one. And instead we will run over here. 7th Street, bye-bye. Cool. All right, so that's a fairly useful service for us, I think. Now, looking at Roseville, look, we're looking pretty decent. We've got coverage of most of our sort of major clusters of these little large residential buildings. They're all covered well enough, but we do have a little bit of residential here that is not covered. How we're going to do that, we're just going to extend our tram line out a little bit further, pretty much. We've also got a little node of commercial. We've also got a little node of residential over here. We're going to serve that by having a street linked up to there, which will need to have one building removed, but that's okay. So now if we get a new tram stop over here, yeah, about here or so, we're pretty much covering everything. I think we're missing just a single building over there. So now what we'll do, we'll edit our route, and we'll also get some updated vehicles on that as well. Now, Santa Clara is actually a town we have probably unreasonably sort of forgotten about a bit. This is one of our largest towns now. If we have a look at our town directory, it is our 3rd largest town. In fact, Thousand Oaks isn't even our biggest anymore, and we'll have a chat about that soon. But it's our 3rd largest town, and it has no public transport. So we need to fix that. So we've got sort of 2 halves of the town now, really. We've actually got a lot of residential, where there was none before over here. So we need to have buses servicing really both sides of the town. Now, something that we need to keep in mind as well is that we don't actually have any... Actually, we do have coverage. Sorry, my bad. We have coverage of... Yeah, in both our terminals here. Do reach across to our residential over here. But we've got sprawling suburbs over here that aren't covered by anything. So what we'll need to do is get some bus services set up to really take care of that. All right, so we've got a fairly broad sort of circulating route here. We're just going to go with the one. I don't think we've got any sort of really out there residential. Oh, we've got this one here, which isn't covered by anything. But, I mean, to be honest, that's your fault for building your house in the middle of an industrial area, so we'll leave it out for the moment. And we'll just get some more of these manned buses. So this is going to be an important route. As I said, this is our 3rd largest city, and we're not serving it with public transport at all. Look at all those cars going off towards Fontana. So I mentioned, and obviously we put our Zephyr on to run between Fontana and Santa Clara, but it's not been getting a heap of use. And what are you doing? Oh, you're just running very slowly. Okay. It's not getting a heap of use. And I wonder if that's because all these cars that are traveling back and forth are from areas, so these, this residential area, and probably some over in Fontana, that aren't covered by the train. So hopefully, getting these new bus routes in will actually reduce some of that traffic as well and push more people towards our little shuttle route we're running. And lastly, we've got Lancaster and Simi Valley. Now, Lancaster is very poorly set up. We've got these large residential buildings here, and they're not covered at all. So we're missing out on a large portion of this town. So we are, of course, going to fix that. And I suspect this will quite significantly increase our passenger throughput to the station as well. Finally, Simi Valley. How are we looking there? Simi Valley's pretty decent, but it does have some very spread out residential buildings. So this is going to be probably a quieter route. But of course, we will get it set up. Alright, and the last thing I want to do in this episode is a fairly simple connection. I want to get food up to Simi Valley. Obviously, we've got lots of food here in Lancaster, and it makes sense to feed it up to a fairly close town. So we'll complete the triangle here, and we'll also need to add a passing loop in as well, as we don't have one on this stretch of track. As we don't have one on this stretch of track between Lancaster and Simi quite yet. If we're looking over here in Simi Valley, where is our food? Oh, it's on the opposite side of the town. That's a little bit trickier, but it should be still fairly manageable. If we're looking at getting a cargo terminus station over here, could we get one over here and will it cover everything still? Yeah, it's definitely not going to cover everything, so we might need to pop it around the back here. That will cover, yeah, pretty much everything. We might pop it over there, and that'll, obviously we'll need to get something else in if we want to deliver machinery, but I think that's okay. I'm pretty happy with that. Is that a bit of a silly connection? Yeah, it is, but I'm just going to deal with it, and so should you. Okay, so let's get our food service set up to run to Simi Valley. So we're going to be using an SD42. Interesting thing about the SD is that obviously compared to the GP, they are a 3 axle per bogie rather than 2, and they were originally designed to run on branch lines because they had lower axle load. But if you look at these days, they don't make GPs anymore, they only make SDs. So clearly it was a better design all up to be using. So we will get that one purchased, and we will get a line set up to run from Lancaster to Simi Valley. And there is one last thing I want to do, and that is over here at Roseville. Let's have a look at our freight station and look at all of those bricks. There's so many of them. So many bricks. So if we have a look at what is waiting. Roseville to Hollywood. Whoa, that is a lot of bricks. Roseville to Rancho. Roseville to Santa Clara. We have way more bricks than we currently have the capacity to be hauling. So let's have a look at some of those lines and see what we've got running on it. First of all, looking at Roseville to Hollywood. And if we pop over here to see what we've got, 162 capacity, 170 meters long. That is not good enough. To put it simply, we need more capacity there. We need to take it up to 240. And we're probably going to have to go even more than that, but 240 is our sort of limit right now. So we're going to make that modification. That is going to increase the capacity on that line. Roseville to Rancho, what are we looking like? We've got 132 capacity. That's worse, even worse. How old is this train? 40 years old. It's time to replace, in fact. We don't have the most cash in hand right now, but let's see what we can do. So if we're running with an SD40, and let's take our flat cars up to 240 meters. I know we are going to hit our cash limit, but that is okay. We have a massive increase in our capacity. 132 up to 234, and we're almost there. We only need 26 mil to change over this train. We might even want to look at getting multiple trains, 2 trains running on some of these lines. But look, right now, let's just make the simple change, what we've got to hand. That should be a nice increase in capacity. Finally, we've got Roseville to Santa Clara bricks. Now this is another one where we're going to have quite an old train on here. 56 years old. So I think the first part of our next episode is going to be, the end of steam. Because probably quite similar to our first series, we have forgotten to get rid of our steam engines. But that's okay. So we will look to upgrade this one to a much higher capacity train, same as what we've been doing with all of our other sort of big ticket brick trains. We'll be switching on to an SD40. And then we will just be filling her up with flat car. And once we get the cash in hand, we're a little bit oversized, which will slightly decrease our loading speed, but I think it'll be fairly manageable. I'm pretty happy with that. And god damn, it took a hot minute or 10 to get that cash all together, but there we go. We've got another SD40 running. So yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on this, and we may need to either put additional trains in or lengthen some of our platforms at our destination stops so that we can take advantage of this lovely, lovely glut of bricks we have over in Roseville. But I think that is going to be about it for this episode. So if you enjoyed this one, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you get a ding to your device the next time I post a video. You can find links to all my social medias in the description, so please get on there, like, follow, subscribe, do all that wonderful stuff. You'll also find a link to my Urbex City Builder playthrough on your screen right now. So it's a bit of a different one for me. I've struggled a little bit, but I hope you give it a go and let me know if you enjoy it. But until next time, I'm Bob Dendry. This is Transport Fever 2. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.